everyone. It's an honor to be here today. Happy Tuesday. My name is Diana. Probably know me by now, here with the Community Engagement Department. Just a few reminders. I did post them in the chat. This is not legal advice. This is just sharing information and resources so that we can come as a community and distribute and learn more. We have Dr. Arias presenting today, and she will introduce herself right now. Also, the session is being recorded, so please refrain from sharing any personal details that you do not wish to be populated after the session is done.
Thank you, Diana. And I want to introduce myself. My name is Doctora Angela Gallegos Castillo. I am coming to you by way of Berkeley, California, and I am the Associate Director of Visión y Compromiso for their movement building division. So what is movement building? It is developing and supporting community leaders, promotoras in their neighborhoods, in their communities, and providing additional training and support, leadership opportunities to make a difference in their communities. So aquí estamos. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm going to go ahead and ask Dr. Edith Arias to introduce herself, and then we will go to the agenda and the PowerPoint. Dr. Arias.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I'm very happy and honored to have been invited to present today and talk a little bit about disability rights. Edith Arias, and I have a son who's 35 years old, and he has gone through the whole educational system through special education. So some of that, and I have a credential in teaching special education in San Francisco Unified. So today I'm excited to share some of that knowledge and definitely, join you with any questions you have after that. But thank you for inviting me.
And I just want to do a little special congratulations, and I want everybody to give her some love. Dr. Arias just received her doctorate. Yay, felicidades. Those three little letters, there's a lot of work that goes into that. Entonces, thank you. Thank you. Edith and I know each other from a few years back, and so I have seen her just explode and expand, and her lived experience is what really drives her. So she'll tell you a little bit about her story when she presents. Diana, could we put the PowerPoint up so that I can move us through our agenda for today with everyone? And one of the things that we do above all is do a little bit of conocimiento. What is conocimiento? Conocimiento is about getting to know each other, creating new connections. A very important, I think, skill and necessity during this time is we need to reach out and meet each other, know what we do, so that we can support each other and create the community of support that so much of our work entails. Because we never know when we have to call up Edith, when we have to call up Maria Concepcion, we call up Angela, or we call up Barbara, because the connections we build in all the spaces are important for us to learn and to know who we can rely on for information. And so I highly, highly encourage you to meet others. And for that purpose alone, we've instituted a new element of our agenda. So every time we come together for knowing your rights, we break out to do a little conocimiento, a little meet and greet. So we would like for you to, share your name, if you have an affiliation, or just what your passion is, what you do. And then what has been your experience with disability rights? How does that come into your life, in your work, in your family, in your community? So if you can share out a little bit about this particular topic about disability rights, we begin the conversation of understanding where we're all coming from. And so Diana is going to break us out into rooms, and we're giving you 10 minutes. How many people per room are we putting together, Diana?
I believe
I believe it's
four.
four.
There's 4 people in each of the groups, so please go ahead and join now. And again, your name, your affiliation, and what has been your experience with disability rights? Okay, it's 9:12, so we will come back at about 9:22. Let's give them till 9:25, Diana. Have fun. Joining us today. I hope you all enjoyed getting to know each other. Community building, especially during this time, is so very important. Get to know who your colleagues are around the state. Diana, do we have anybody outside of California today that you can see? Okay, we have
No.
Clarissa, California, Watts. Well, we got folks from Watts, Santa Monica, Sacramento, Long Beach. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Antelope Valley, Central Valley, Nebraska. All right. Omaha, Nebraska. Let's give it up for Maria Concepcion. Bienvenida. We have Santa Clara County, South San Francisco. Thank you all for joining us. Okay, so without further ado, as you see on the agenda, we are going to now introduce Doctora Arias. She will be presenting today on the issue of disability rights. And just on a personal note, you can read her information on the screen. She has been here as an immigrant for almost 40 years. I met Dr. Arias through the Chicana Latina Foundation. For those of you in Northern California, the Chicana Latina Foundation offers scholarships to Latinas in higher ed. And that is how I met Edith as a scholarship recipient. She not only has a doctorate from the University of San Francisco in organization and leadership, but she has her own lived experience with the field of disability as a mother of a child with developmental disabilities. And so I just want to say that Dr. Arias is an amazing advocate. She is a persistent, consistent, I'm going to achieve what I set out to achieve in so many areas of her life. But I will stop there and have her introduce herself through her presentation. I think a lot of what we offer as a Visión y Compromiso is recognizing and highlighting the value of all of us, that our lived experience is so important in how we become advocates and supporters of others. And so I know that that story is going to be coming out via Dr. Arias's presentation. So without further ado, muchísimas gracias, Doctora Arias, for coming and joining us and, helping educate ourselves around disability rights. Bienvenida, welcome.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Um, Diana, will you be helping me like when I say next? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So again, good morning. I'm so really excited to be here and yeah, we can go to the next one. Today we're going to talk about disability rights for students. So in my small group, we were talking about how there's so many other um, disability rights throughout lifespan of an individual, right? Today, to start, I will be focusing in education. But again, in the session of question and answers, you can let me know if you have other questions, and I'll be touching on those a little bit too. But for today, my agenda that I have, I want to introduce a little bit more about who I am. Then we'll talk about United States educational system laws, how to navigate the school system, and also do advocacy for students who have some educational needs. And I will be sharing some resources to support special needs in education. Um, and hopefully this, again, starts a conversation and some of your questions that that might come up. Next. So I'll start. Thank you for saying Angela, about how important it is, our lived experience. So I come in a different way to the professional field. I come as my experience, first of all, as a mother, a 20 and a half year old mother, immigrant, 2 years into the country, just learning about how, first of all, being a mom, right? How being a mother. So my first child was born with intellectual and developmental disabilities, the same then uh, some extensive surgeries for facial reconstruction when he was born. He was born with like a fatty tumor on top of his head, and that was removed when he was 5 months old, with consecutive surgeries after that. So um, it it did started right there when he was born. His milestones were not, and also again, as a first time mother, I was like, what is a milestone? What do that means? Right. So I'm learning all of these things, but I find out that he was going to take more time to walk, to talk, to do all these things that other children might do at a certain time with the milestones. So he started with that. I started with that with him and learning. And he's just flourish into this 35-year-old who's like so exciting to be with people and social and everything. So as an adult now, after he graduated from the school district at 22 years old, he's now in a community-based adult program. So now it continues, right? What is it that he's going to be doing as an adult? And when he was 21, I received my teacher credential from San Francisco State, and work at San Francisco Unified School District as a special. Well, I started there as a peer educator. That's why I have this one here. I started there as a peer educator as I was completing my credential. As soon as I got my credential, I became a teacher. And what I was teaching was adult transition program, which is the 18 to 22 years old who have more extensive support needs, who might, because of the cognitive disabilities and abilities, right, might not be able to graduate from high school and then go into a community college or any higher education. So I was teaching adult transition program, which is a community-based curriculum. Is more life skills. You teach them how to take the bus, how to use money, how to, prepare their lunch, and any other skills that we need to develop to be able to become more independent. Through that, being a teacher, being a mom, I I really became an advocate. I wanted to learn more. I started getting myself into different uh, um, information, places. And with that, with another mom, we started a Familias Fuertes group, which it was a support group for Spanish-speaking families who had children with special needs in the school district where we lived. So we started that group just to share about IEPs, just to share about what the rights were, the experiences we had, the questions they had, and we would find out any answer we didn't have at that time. And after that, I joined the Golden Gate Regional Center Board as a member and stayed there for 7 years. So it also put me in a place where I was able to go. There's 21 regional centers in California. So I was able to be the delegate for our local regional center, that is 3 counties, and represent and hear from other places in California about, again, individuals who had disabilities. And through that, I was appointed to the Health and Human Services Master Plan and Developmental Services Committee, and it was a opportunity again to see what the expansion after school, right? What's going to happen once your children graduate. So it was still doing advocacy for those who are still in school system, but then after, like what happens after, and even, planning after us as parents are not there anymore. So throughout the presentation, you're going to hear me talk about as a parent, and then I'll put my hat as a teacher, maybe as an advocate. So I want to make sure that you know why, because I think this topic can take many, many hours, and we only have, can I just check for the time? I want to make sure. So it's 9:35, right? Till 10.
Yeah, we have, and you can go a little further. We have until 11. It's from 9 to 11, so you have plenty of time.
Okay, want to make sure, just don't want to, okay. So because again, this topic can be very detailed, can have a lot of information, but we can also, touch on it. And definitely, I'm sure that, there's going to be so much that can be covered, but today I'm going to be focusing in education, so
Yeah.
students, right?
Yeah, and
And
so yeah, we have plenty of Q&A, questions and answers time
okay,
for people to bring in more specific questions if they have.
perfect. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so next, I will start talking about some of the students' rights. So we want to talk about, in the educational system in the United States, what is it that we have? And as you can see, this Individuals with Disability Education Act in the 70s was created to support from birth to 22 years old. And really, what this act says is that want to make sure that any student that has a disability receives free public education that is appropriate for them. And I put the acronyms because sometimes you will see those acronyms, in special education. We have a lot of acronyms. So I put them in there. And also the least restricted environment. And what do that mean? Restricted environment really means that the individual can learn in certain ways. So every student might have a different need, even if the diagnosis looks, an example, autism, right? But the student might be better learning in a more, with less students, with less sounds and lights, and there's students with the same, disability that might be developing better in regular classrooms, right? So I want to say that because I want to make sure that you know that the education for students with disabilities means that special education is a service. So that's very important to know. Special education is a service, is not a place. So that's why in the least restricted environment. So it depends on the individual student. So an individual student with very high needs can be in a regular classroom if it's supported through services, through other staff, depending on what they've been told that that will be the services according to their needs, right? So I would just want to make sure that we know that, like, free appropriate education in the least restricted environment for that individual student. Now, even though this act is from birth to 22, there's this different parts, and there's actually four, but I'm not going to go into the four because the other ones are not exactly, is more like services to the staff and to the individuals. But part C is birth to 3 years old. And I know that this is going to be shared. So these are links. When you see this blue one, these are links where you can learn a little bit more about it. This is early intervention, where you're going to have an individualized family service plan, which means that you're going to be servicing the family, right? Birth to 3-year-old is a way of starting early before the student starts 3 years old, preschool, or goes into a educational classroom, right? So it's so important to support the families of that student as early as birth. So many times there are certain needs that are seen right away, but at other times there's the milestones, those milestones that are not being reached by the individual, by the pretty much either baby or toddler. It's important to go and ask for that support, right? So it's early enough to start identifying any more extensive needs for the children. So this is covered through this act and this law, which again, just it's important for us to know that this is a federal law. It's not just California, but this is federal, right? So throughout the country. And then the part B is where the students 3 to 22 years old have a individualized educational plan, meaning that is according to what that individual student needs. So if a student needs access to physical access to, getting into a classroom, if a student needs someone who's helping them to maybe understand, the letters, the colors in a way different than is, a teacher, a regular education teacher will be teaching, then those are important to have for a student who is 3 to 22 years old. Now, the levels of cognition are going to be very different, right? And the needs are going to be very different. So therefore, there's 13 disabilities that are categorized within, and again, those are links. You can check those. But those are the ones that qualify an individual student to be protected under this Individuals with Disability Education Act, IDEA. So this IEP, the Individual Education Plan, has to have some certain goals for that student, right? What is it that a student at 5 years old, what is it that a student in middle school, a student in high school, and then why is it 22 years old? Because again, we're talking about individuals whose disabilities impacting them to the level that they might not be able to, go to a higher education services. So that means that the student, then the school districts are responsible for their education until they're 22. So they graduate at 12 12th grade, which is about 18 years old. And then the next is what we call transition program, right? So education that is life skills, and which is the one I was teaching, meaning that, yes, the college education or the after high school education, vocational, and any education that our students get are to prepare them for the future. Therefore, this 18 to 22 adult education program with life skills is also teaching them, right? Supporting them in their specific needs to be adults and to see what the future is going to be like. So what is it that they need at this point? And school districts are required to teach all the way till they're 22. Now, if the student wants to graduate and has the ability to be able to attend a community college or a university or a vocational school, then if they have that ability, then they should be supported with services to be able to attend a college, to attend a university, to attend another program. So it is very, again, individualized. So I think the key word here is that it's individualized to that student. Whatever that student needs to continue with their peers, right? Other students who might not have disabilities, that's what is going to be done. So that's why I'm saying that this is very broad and is very, but this is what is important, to think about the student as an individual all the time. And what happens when they have an IEP, an individual education plan, means that they're going to have goals to help them, right, develop the skills or to continue to find ways and strategies for them to be more independent. And they're going to be measured and reviewed every year. So that's a federal law. You need to review their IEP goals every 12 months, 12 months, so 1 year. They can be done before if needed. They can be, there's always amendments to IEPs if it's needed in 6 months, 8 months, but at least every year there has to be a review of goals for every student. Then the student needs also to be reevaluated at least every 3 years, which is called a triennial IEP. Every 3 years, it continues to do more like evaluations to see if there's any changes, progress, if anything has changed. Because again, when we talk about IEPs, we're not just talking, as you can see, the third.
No acabas todavía.
Sorry.
Oh,
Can
So
everyone close, Diana, can you close everybody's microphone? Thank you.
So the 13 disabilities that I was talking about includes disabilities that will be helping students with behaviors or with mental health needs. So that would make it so that sometimes after 3 years the disabilities are different, or they have acquired the ability, right, to continue in a way that is not as restrictive. So they can be, again, more, it's important to do those 3 years whole evaluations where they do testing and more. And then what's important to remember about this IDEA is that the education has modifications individualized to the student. That means you're going to modify the curriculum, right? So meaning that the students' needs are higher than what you would do in a regular classroom. And therefore, if a student is what is called kind of pushed into one of those classrooms, regular classroom with regular students, which any student with disability has the right to do, that what is being taught is going to be modified, right? Instead of making somebody read, instead of write and maybe very extensive, deep information, you're going to touch on what the concept or the context most important of the lesson is, but you might have someone by the side of the student supporting them to understand it in a different way. So you're modifying the curriculum. So that's one of the important things of the IDEA. Next. Now, students' rights. There are students who might not qualify for an individual education plan. Why? Because they have the cognitive ability to do a lot of the work that a student, depending, again, elementary, middle school, high school, is doing. So the student might not have a disability that puts them in a high need of modifying the education, but the student might have the need to be able to have supports still in their education. So therefore, there's the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and Section 504 says that no student should be, what's the word I'm looking for? There shouldn't be discrimination against a student for not being able to, right, to complete something, to be able to concentrate, to be able to be at the level of their peers as they're moving on with the lessons. So, but the student might have that ability, so cognitive ability to do it, right? So 3 years old to no upper age limit, which means that Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act is not for school only. So that's what it means, that no upper age limit. Why? Because this is a civil rights law, which means that because of the law says that you're not going to be discriminated, that moves on with you through life, right? So examples would be maybe mental health needs, right? Depression, anxiety. They're impeding a student to learn in that situation or in that moment, right? Many might get the supports and strategies enough to, as they grow and they move on, through after school, they are able and capable of doing or supporting themselves with strategies and services. But others will continue to be affected in a way that you need to have those protections in able to get a job or be in the community. So that's why this section, it really is not just for school, but it does support students who are in school. Um, they in school, students have the right to have a plan. So this plan is for them to not be discriminated against because of their disability. So then the student might have a physical or mental impairment, but might not be a disability is that is not going to maybe be supported with services and have them be able to do what their peers are doing. So it's more like an impairment restricting their educational performance or their ability to pay attention, their ability to access that education or places. So it's important to see that even though there are times when a student might be told he doesn't qualify, she doesn't qualify, they don't qualify for an IEP, an individualized education plan, because they're able to access the education. But when you see them in that education environment, they still might need certain extra time to do homework or extra extra support after school to be able to understand, because they might process information a little longer, but they still get it, right? They will be able to perform and give that, that information process to be able to do the work that is expected from them, depending on their level. So again, this, and I'm speaking to both of these two acts as a mother, because my oldest son had an IEP, but my two younger children had a 504 plan. They had a 504 plan due to mental health needs that were supported through this plan, where we would once a year make sure we review it and seeing how my children were performing, specifically in high school, and whether they needed those extra supports or not, right? Sometimes a student can be removed from the classroom to go take a test in the office. A student can be given extra time to turn in the test or the homework, And so all of this is so important. And these are like hidden disabilities that many times we don't see. And oh, yes, Angela.
No, I just wanted to reiterate that because a lot of folks tend to think that it's only a physiological issue under disability or rehabilitation, but mental health, if my understanding is that if your child has mental health needs and is on medication or however it is that they're receiving treatment, that they are candidates to receive these resources and services in their school.
Exactly. No, thank you for saying that. And not just the services, right? This is a law and it's a federal law. So meaning that they have that right, but we need to be aware that it exists and how does it work to make sure that, and so that highlighted or blue hyperlink is going to take you to more of an explanation what the 504 rehabilitation.
And Edith, everyone will be receiving this PowerPoint afterwards so they can go to those live links.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That's why I wanted to make sure that I have a little bit, because we could continue to talk and talk, right? But I want to make sure that I go through the information today. But I really encourage every one of you, whether you have a child or a client or someone you're supporting with disabilities or not, right? Because I think it's important for us also as a community to learn about it, because then we identify somebody else, or we understand why somebody else is using a different device, or is using extra time to do something, or it's not there, or, many times we don't understand that we have this diversity of, you know, um, neurological abilities, right? So it's important to keep that in mind. And yes, thank you, Angela, because mental health needs is definitely something that is going to impede whether you're a student, whether you're at a job, whether you're doing leisure activities, to be fully engaged, or hell, it will also make you maybe act in different ways. And so we need to understand that, right? We need to together understand that. So for this, the 504, when a student has a 504 plan, the education received by the student has accommodations, but is not modified. Right. So that's the difference between the two, that the education doesn't need to be modified. So classroom teacher, general education can be teaching the class, and you don't have to modify for the student to grasp the meaning, the understanding, but they can be having accommodations. So extra time, or explain to that individual student in a different way after school, after class, have a tutor. So all of these are rights that a student can have. But I just want to make sure that you understand that the two different laws and acts that exist in education, because sometimes it's complicated. So yes, this is what's important to think: is the education being modified, given different ways, or is the education just be accommodating to the students so that they can access that education? Okay, thank you. Next. So now, how do we navigate the school system? So I'm telling you about those two different laws that covers most of the needs of students who have different ways of learning. The individual education plan is important, first of all, to identify them, right? So identifying an individual who, again, birth to 3 years old, they might not be hitting the milestones of, a child developing in their development. You see something that is different with their peers. And I mean, now looking back as a mother, I could have seen that just by comparing him to other children that same age, right? Because that's how we go. We look at individuals with their peers, and what's different? What is it difficult? What is it that one might have that you see that is not letting them access and be with others at the same kind of a level, or in this case in school, right? Developing their education in a way that others are doing it. So identifying that and doing the referral. So one of the first things for students, even when before they're in school, a psychoeducational assessment, and you will have you're going to be able to click and understand it better. It means that there's going to be a very comprehensive evaluation of that individual student cognition, academics, right? If it's little, it's like, do they know the colors? Like my child, my son, he went to preschool for 2 years, and he did not grasp that, like all the letters, the colors, just that was very difficult for him, even when he started first grade. So things that you just want to make sure, is it just he just needs a way to like support them, or is it because there's really this a different way, or there, in my son's case, it was his cognition, right, was not developing at the same than his peers. So for him it was so important. But this test also goes into this assessment into social emotional functioning, which that was where my son, uh, his scores were really high, very social, very able to have a conversation, be with others. But there are students who might not, who their social emotional are so impaired that it's difficult for them. It's not that they don't want to, that's why it's a psychoeducational assessment, because they have testings that can help schools and programs understand where is the functioning level of an individual, their cognitive functioning, their academic functioning, where are they at? So that's the first. You can ask for one at the school district. You can ask for one at a regional center, at least here in California. For Nebraska, I'm sure there's another way that you can ask, but you have the right to ask for one before they're 3 years old and even after, right? A 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, at any time. Then determining if the visual student is eligible to receive an individual education plan. This is the moment where they might say, well, we're determining out of the psychoeducational plan assessment scores that the student does not have an impairment disability that qualifies them for an individual education plan. Then you might go resource into the 504 plan in which ways, right? Developing, once that is determined, so from the 13 disabilities and the student qualifies, you develop an individual education plan specific for the student. So it has to be so specific to the student, and this is so important because you don't want to have a plan that is every student has the same plan. No, it's going to be very individualized with some of the goals. Yes, Angela.
So, for this IEP, for those who have never worked with an IEP, who is the first person in the school that you should be talking to?
The school district.
No, but within the school, do you begin with your teacher? Do you begin with the principal? Who do you begin to have a conversation with when you realize, oh, my child or my nephew, my niece, the family I work with, we need to tell them to go talk to who?
Well, again, you can definitely talk to the teacher, the principal, everybody who you named, because what this law says is child fine. It has an area where it says a child fine, so anyone can refer a student to have a psychoeducational plan. So anyone from the teacher, right? You can have a conversation with the teacher. I noticed in this, have you noticed that? Oh, yes, I have. So therefore, the teacher can refer, but the parents can refer. The parents or someone supporting can go directly to a school district and say, according to these observations, we believe that the student might, right? And this psychoeducational plans, again, is a service that is free for individuals. So yes.
And I see Alejandra, I'll call you right now. And so when you say go to the district, that means go to the Office of Disabilities. What is the name of the office?
Special Education Department. Yeah.
Special Education Department.
And again, it depends, right? Others might name it differently, but if you just go directly to the school district office, they should direct you. But within the school district administration, there's a special education department. So, yeah.
Great. Alejandra.
Yes, I just want to add to that. I don't know if it's gonna be different from different districts, but here in Sacramento, at least you have the right to go to the office and ask for the petition to assess your kid for an IIB. And obviously it takes a process because, as she said, the district has to have the application. So if you do it in a school, obviously it's gonna take about 2 to 4 weeks to get to the district, and then it's gonna take a while. But as a parent, we do have the right to go and ask to the office just for that evaluation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then obviously first talking to the teacher, and then maybe she can refer it. But if you want something quick, just do it. Go to the district and do it yourself.
Yeah.
And then we do have the right to have it in Spanish also.
Oh, yes. In any language, Spanish and other languages. So the family's language, they have to find the the translator or the all the documents, like Alejandra said, translated. So thank you for saying that, because again, that's why I said go to the school district, because Alejandra is right. Yes, you can talk to the teacher, then you both can talk to the principal, you can, continue to ask questions, but because of this law, you and anyone, an uncle, a grandma, as long as you have the educational rights, I'm going to touch on that later. You can go directly and just ask for it. And it's the law. You
Great.
go and ask for an psychoeducational assessment, because you might be, observing, something that makes you feel the student is not developing out there like their peers. So. And Alejandra, I will have that in the next slides, but it will take time, Alejandra, but at the same time, by law, there's a specific time that they cannot go over. If they go over, they're out of compliance. The district is not doing what the federal law says. So yeah, there's a time limit for them, but yes, they can take the time. So again, progress monitoring with periodic reevaluation, meaning that the annual IEP, you review progress in educational goals that the student has. This can be review, like I said, you don't have to wait for a year. You can be asking about what happened with this goal, how is there, what's the progress? Are they doing any, improving in any of those skills or goals that they have? But the annual IEP is the formal once a year documentation and whole meeting from the team that gets together. And then the triennial, like I said, is the reevaluation of the student every 3 years. So it's important to have those goals, the IEP, the progress monitoring. So again, this is kind of like the steps of how you navigate through when a student has an IEP. It's very important. Like I said, once they have the IEP, then it's an annual and triennial continuously happening throughout their education. And there are timelines for California and special education. So I'll have this with a link in the next one, meaning that there's timelines for, and we can go to the next one. I think I put it in there. If not, it's going to be there. But I just want to finish the thought about it's important to know what the timelines look like, because it's like 60 days after somebody requires, and don't forget, everything has to be by writing. Like you ask for that, like Alejandra said, go to the school district, but don't just go and talk to somebody. I like somebody to do a psychoeducational assessment. It's like, I'm bringing this letter, and let me tell you what the letter says. The letter says that I'm asking for a psychoeducational assessment, but you have to do it in writing. Put the date and put your signature all the time. That's what's important in all the paperwork in this laws, right? So navigating the school system with the 504 plan means that you are going to, again, identification and request in writing. I'm requesting a 504 plan for the student because these are what the observations, this is what we're seeing. You have a meeting, right? The public education system falls into this because they receive financial federal assistance. So any program institution in the United States that receives federal assistance, financial federal assistance, they have to comply with the 504 law, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. This is the Section 4 of that law. Okay, so they have to, because the individual, in this case, we're talking about navigating the school system, the students need that support. And so the meeting that's going to happen is going to be to determine the eligibility. And I have a hyperlink so you can see some of the eligibility determination for a 504 plan. And students might have, again, a physical or mental impairment rather than a disability, right? So again, those are the two important keywords that you want to look into when you think about a 504 plan and an IEP. Is it an impairment or is it a disability that is going to limit their major life activities, right? Studying, working, anything that they're going to be doing. Developing a 504 plan is with the student, the family, the school, meaning that you sit together and you together think about what would be some of the accommodations that the student would need to be able to get the goal that they're looking for to access their education. And these are annually reviewed to assessing if the impairment and if the impairment that the student has continues to have any educational implication. Like, again, think about, and these are, I feel, at least in my personal experience as a parent, being depression and anxiety can really be an impediment for a student to say they're learning a lesson, they need to turn in the homework, they need to think, have comprehension in that moment. It's hard. It's hard not having a disability. It's hard not having an impairment. So with a student who has one, many times we might see the student retrieving, not paying attention because of that, because they can't access it. So that's why we need this 504 plan to support what are the accommodations that we need to give the student to be able to do it, to be able to get their education. And again, it's more about knowing, we're talking about today, knowing your rights. What are the options that we have to support a student as a parent or as a promotora, right? All this information, what can I support in the understanding, and where can we go and look for this information? So again, some of these links will help you to be a little deeper. Like I said here, the eligibility for determination will give you more of what qualifies a student for a 504 plan. Next, please. And so the importance is, again, how do you understand it? How do you navigate it? Once you kind of understand it, now you have to navigate it, right? You have to go through all that. But what are the resources that there are to support students who have special needs in education? These are some that I found and that I have used myself as a parent and as an advocate. This website of Center for Parent Information Resources is national, so that's important. Once you get into this website, you can locate the local one for you. There's different agencies, there's different organizations that fall into, I didn't put the acronym, but it's say PIR. PIR is a Parent Information Resource, right? Place, center, organization, where they're going to give you more regarding special education, special needs for the students. And within that, I found, maybe for promotoras or maybe for someone who's interested to go a little deeper, they have free training curriculum for the Part C of the IDEA that I told you, birth to 3 years old, and the training curriculum for Part B of IDEA for 3 to 22 years old. So you're really interested in learning a little deeper, and you take these classes. It has, all the it's in English, and they also have them in Spanish, and you can go deeper into really understand them through different, they have several, what are they called? Sections, exactly, like about learning about certain areas of that law. And they're free. They're on this website, and you can even just not, I'm not sure, because it's free. I don't think you have to have the training, the whole training, which is not long, but the information is there. So I just thought this were interesting. And then in California, again, this is important to say, it's only in California we have like Lenterman Act entitlement. This is an entitlement for individuals with developmental disabilities. A developmental disability is going to stay with the student forever, right? From birth till death. So that means the individual will always have this disability or this need, this difference, right? Which is the case of my son. My son will always have this needs. It's not going to change. Like I said, others sometimes mental health needs can be supported. And even though they stay with you, you learn strategies and ways to navigate and continue to be with your peers in a way that you're continue to learn. But this is for individuals with developmental disabilities. And they're served by regional centers. there's 21 regional centers in California. There's not in any other place of the country, which when I learned it for the first time, I was like, why is this? Why is this? It's because of people like promotoras, parents went and they went and advocated. They went and found politicians, legislators who they, at that time in the 60s, individuals who had developmental disabilities did not go to school. They did not accept them in school. They were segregated at that time. So when these parents went and advocated for this law, they changed the way that California supports individuals with developmental disabilities. Doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in other parts of the state in different ways, but the country, but the country has different ways of supporting individuals with disabilities. In California, we have an entitlement for individuals with developmental disabilities. So again, the regional centers are around California. There's 21 of them, and you can Google and find according to your area and say what regional center serves where I live or where the student lives or the individual lives, because regional centers serve individuals from birth to death. So they're complete. It doesn't end. The services, if you qualify for the services, that means you have a disability that is going to stay with you forever.
Yeah. So this is something that I truly believe there's a high need to educate our Latinx community, because I don't know that a lot of people know about the regional centers and that they can get support for their entire life.
Yes. And is similar to what we talk about the psychoeducational assessment. You can go to a regional center when a baby's born, right? Because when they're born, a lot of the times they might even identify in that moment. There's qualifying, like let's say Down syndrome. You know that this baby is going to have that need. So automatically you go to a regional center, you need an assessment for their services to your child. So that happens. And yes.
And Edith, there's so much information right now about how young adults, 18 to 25-year-olds, are having a very difficult time. This is a generation that had to go through COVID-19. No hablemos the state of our society in our country, that there's a very high level of anxiety and mental health issues in our young people. So these regional centers, you can go and ask for an assessment for their child, for anybody who is looking for support and understanding if they see their high schooler, their young adult struggling. Is that correct?
Well, no, unfortunately, these are developmental disabilities that the individual was born with. So unfortunately, if they were acquired after, we're going to have to Google that because I don't want to give a full statement, but there's an age, if it's not 18 or 22, if it's acquired because of an accident, if it is acquired because of something happened that, now impedes, right, their cognitive skills, then there's other federal services that will service that individual. But when they are born with these developmental disabilities, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that means that mostly the ones that you're definitely going to be referring are the younger ones, right? Because you're identifying they can do that. But the 18 to 22 that you were talking about, the 504, the section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, that will support them. Yes, throughout. So if it's depression, anxiety, ADHD, anything that will, like you said, 18 to 22, this youth might have something that was not identified during their school years.
Yes.
And
yes.
Then yes, you can have that assessment for the section 504. Which is
section
like
504.
Department of Rehabilitation. You go and say, I need an assessment. This is what I think is happening. And then that's where the determination happens.
Yes. Because if we were to look I worked in the juvenile justice, criminal justice arena for quite a long time. And the literature shows that a lot of kids that get that get into juvenile hall have never had a mental health assessment in their life. So they never got one at school. And then they're finding these developmental challenges when they're already in trouble, when they're already in the criminal justice or the juvenile justice system. So I think a lesson here for all of us is knowing that there's support, there are laws that we can access to get these psychosocial assessments earlier to avoid and help hopefully prevent our children from getting involved in the justice system.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because, like you said, I think there's many articles and research that's been done identifying many of our youth in the juvenile system who have disabilities. Again, remember, there's developmental intellectual disabilities, but there's other disabilities that still considered disabilities, right? There's physical disabilities, like I said, just certain impairments in our ability to comprehend social skills, right? All of that, they are assessment to say whether an individual is their needs are higher or same than their peers, and that's where the qualifications or determinations happen. But there's assessment for everything. There's an assessment for everything, and we don't know that, and we don't talk about it enough. And that's why it's important to be able to identify or know at least or tell somebody, research more about that information depending on the individual.
There's a question in the chat. Edith, I don't want to interrupt you.
Sure. No,
Are you almost to the last?
Yes, one more slide after this.
Okay.
No, do you want to ask?
Okay. They're asking, what are the options if parents did not know about the law and did not go through Part B or C, and sibling is now an adult and parent would like the sibling to either go to school or work? And that question is offered by Maria Eugenia.
Okay, so did not check on Part C or B, so we're talking about the IDEA.
You could see her question in the chat if it's easier.
Just because it depends. Again, I'm telling you, it is complicated, and let's see what's the situation. What are the options if parent did not know about the law and did not go through Part B or C? Sibling is now an adult, and parent would like sibling to either go to school or work. Well,
so Maria Elena, you can open your mic if you want to give more context, but I think it's the sibling of someone who.
Yeah. So going back into, I think, Angela, you kind of touched on that, is this sibling who wants to go to school or work, because school can be community college, vocational. Do they have developmental disabilities, or do they have disabilities that are impeding them to access the education or the work environment, right? Because if it's the work environment and it's the school, then that's related with either the 504s, the section 504 of the rehabilitation law, which in many community college and universities have disability, the department of this, well, it has different names, but I think San Francisco State is disabled students department, even though I don't like this disabled first, but students with disabilities, right? Again, we go back into attention deficit disorder, dyslexia. It could be just depression, anxiety. So any of those qualifies for them to have services at that college and qualifies for them to have accommodations at a job. So definitely having that assessment that says where the individual is, because if it's an adult or a youth, like I told Angela, I think they might have already and hopefully had been identified through the school system in the early years. For IDEA, you have to have intellectual or developmental disabilities. I don't know if that answered the question, but we will open it to questions, so please follow up with that. I just want to finish with the resources, how to support the students. The ARC of California is an organization that was created at the time of when the Lenterman Act started. So very long time and a lot of information. And the El ARC de California, this one was created not long ago because of the high need of Spanish-speaking individuals and families and supporters. And then there's a whole organization completely, they work together. They're everything is the same, but it's separate for Spanish-speaking families. So El ARC de California is specifically for our Spanish-speaking community. 504 plan, frequent asked questions. I put it in there because this comes from the U.S. Department of Education. So you all click on there, and some of those questions that might come up, they will be answered throughout that website, the U.S. Department of Education. Then the State Council of Developmental Disabilities. This is another one that is supported through the state, and they have a lot of resources, webinars. They have opportunities for you to be an advocate and join one of their committees. They have information about not just school, but also after, right? When an individual is like, what supports are there in California? So this one, again, is specifically for developmental disabilities, which kind of goes back into what the regional center services do. But this is, again, a state agency. The regional centers are considered nonprofits, but they don't act as a, fundraiser. All of their financial support and their funds come from the state, from the Department of Developmental Services. So that's what the difference are. And then Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, as the title says of this organization, this is also a nonprofit, free services for the community. And I mean, what else can I say? Disability rights education. So they specifically go into the rights of what the students have within education, and they provide a lot of legal advice, a lot of legal guidance for parents and individuals who support students with disabilities. So I have my last, I believe my last slide. We're going over the time, but we're in the last one. Thank you. So advocacy for students with educational needs. So important, again, as a parent, as a promotora, as maybe someone who works in an organization, learning what the student's disability or special need is. So there's organizations, and I know Parent Helping Parents is more like local in the Bay Area. I'm not sure about other parts of California, but I'm sharing this one. They have, they help you to educate yourself, right, about disabilities. They help you you have questions, they find that, they have presenters, they have classes, they have webinars, or, information that's been recorded. So just learning about the student's disability is really, really important, because that way, what are you requesting of the law or of the education institution. Then always utilize a student-centered approach. In this case, I put personal portfolio, which it was my master's degree project. The individual can have nowadays, and when you click in there, you'll have the examples. At my time, it was a binder. A binder where I put all the information of who the student is, right? What do they like? What are their strengths? What are their needs, right? Where are the areas that they really need support? What do they do for fun? Like, that's student center. Like, if you're going to teach a lesson and that they like about cars, or they're going to be more interested in doing that than if you're just providing a different topic, right? It was important for me now as a parent. I'm going to put in my hat as a parent. It was important for me at that time when my son was in the 18 to 22 years old program, the adult transition program, that he learned how to write and do math and all of those academics without me thinking that who my son was, right? He liked cars, music, socializing with others. So at that time, the time that was there, the goals that were written in the IEP could have been more centered in how maybe he can use an ATM card to pay, right? Maybe he can use a calculator, or nowadays with all the technology, everything is evolving. So that's why I say it's important to center our support and advocacy on the student, who the student is, because every student is very individual. They all have needs, but they all have their own strengths and potential. Connecting with local and state organizations, like some of the ones that I gave you, you can write to them, you can call them, but you can also put yourself in their newsletter, right? And get some of the invites when something is happening, or sometimes when laws are happening, because as much as it hurts to say, we have laws. The laws can go away. Laws can go away if you don't advocate. If we don't make it known to our community to vote for certain protections, right? So that's important. Then open and constant communication with school and service providers. It's also very important when you're advocating for the rights of your students, of your children, because that's how you're going to learn of what whoever's servicing or supporting your child or your or the student is going to be doing, right? So you want to make sure that they know who you are, who the family is of the student, what's their environment, what's their culture, what they, their traditions are. That's important. So that open communication is very important within school and home and service providers. And then parental rights. I learned this the hard way after students turn 18 years old. Even though my son did not had the ability to write and read at a first grade level, he has his own educational rights. So educational rights moves to the student unless there's another educational right holders. This is for their IEPs. It's so important because a student becomes an adult at 18. And so parental rights are still there because you're the parent, but at the same time, the educational rights go to the student. So what do that means? That there are supports and protections. And I put some of the examples like guardianship, conservatorship, supportive decision-making, or any other alternative legal arrangement where you want to make sure if the need is there, if the 18-year-old can do their own advocacy and sign papers and understand what's happening, and you want them to be independent, that is okay too. But most of the time it's going to be that they need that support, right? So it's important to have a legal arrangement to make sure that when they're 18 to 22, the student can still get your support. And again, timelines for California special education is a hyperlink. You can see that once you request a psychoeducational assessment, there's 60 days that the district has to complete it. So it's going to feel very long, but at least you know that there's a time limit. They have to comply with the law. So that's why it's important to write dates, to make sure that you put your name so that you can prove that that's been done. And there's different timelines for assessments, for receiving services. If the IEP as a legal document says that a student is going to get 30 minutes of speech therapy every 2 weeks and the student doesn't receive it, then there's compensatory services starting from when they didn't get it. So they need to get those 30 minutes given, even if it's later on. So that all of those things are important to know, and the timelines are there. And so next slide. So thank you. Muchas gracias. And I think this is the part where we go into questions, and there might be a lot of questions. So I see the time, but thank you. This concludes my presentation, but I'm ready for any questions you might have. And I think this is what you provided, Angela.
Yes, gracias. And that red slide, Diana, go back. We put together in addition to the resources Dr. Arias shared, we also have this list of California resources, and one very big organization across the state is Disability Rights California, that not only focuses on education, but all disability rights. So we have a colega there. Her name is Vanessa Ochoa, and she speaks Spanish. She's bilingual, and please also know that she's there if you want to call California Disability Rights. I'll put it in the chat. Okay, questions? Other questions? I know we had some during the presentation.
And we could also go through those. I wasn't reading the chat, so I was if
Yeah.
there's anything that we need to answer from the chat.
Alejandra Pacheco says we can always talk about it with the family doctor. They will refer them to the right people too. So your medical provider as a support. Who else has any other questions? Or maybe a situation, but no names. Anybody else? Or have an observation? Question, comment, observation. Doesn't just have to be a question. Okay, I guess you learned everything. Yay. Dr. Arias was very thorough. It is hard, Barbara, it is very hard to find resources as adults. Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah,
for
it
adults?
thank you. Yeah, no, definitely it's hard, but again, it's hard if we don't know our rights, right? It's hard if we don't know our options. So I think what's important through the big list that Angela had in there, I think it's important to, look into what are the resources that they offer, because many of the times these organizations also, and that's what I do now, you see that they themselves have a link in their website for other resources. So continue to like click on what, in this case, resources. What you see in there in many of the times is important to see when we talk about it's hard for an adult. What is it that the adult needs? Is it related with education? Is it related with work? Is it related with daily living? What is it that they need? And to be able to go to these organizations that really fight and have all the information about disability rights, and then be able to ask those questions. I have difficulties with this, or this is difficult for me, or I can't access that, right? And so they will guide you, or you ask for that guidance, right? About, do I need a accommodation in my job? Is it difficult because, again, it goes back into what is it that individual needs? What is the need to go see what the resources are out there? Because like right now I see in the chat a lot of the different services. So depending on what, and these are California Department of Education. So a lot of these are educational. So yes, up to maybe 20, 22 in the school district. But after that, even I went back as an adult. I did not do my schooling. I came to the United States as a high school student. I was 16. I did my senior year in high school, and then I got married, and my son was born. So I stayed home. I supported him, and not until, because I had two other children, not until my youngest was in kindergarten, I went back to school. I went to community college, took some classes. So even at that age, as an adult, if I have difficulties concentrating, if I have depression, if I have, attention deficit disorder, right? So I think somebody had comment, you go to your medical doctor, you ask for an assessment, and what is it that is impeding you to be able to access that education or preparedness, then you can ask for that. The Department of Rehabilitation, DOR, and I know that Angela, I saw that it was in one of your in the red resources. Department of Rehabilitation supports any adult, related with work, right? Related with, I have a job, but I can't do this, or this is difficult. They do an assessment also. What are the needs? And then they find the supports. And because they're so specialized in that, they have list of things, they have ideas, you can be innovative and see, well, this is the way that an accommodation will help me to do that job or to perform, just like my peers. And so that's for adults. So definitely, I think, yes, it's difficult, but there are many resources that we really need to, maybe a little bit of time. It takes time, but they are there. They really are there.
Any other comment, question, observation?
Try to advocate for our children.
Okay, so if I would love to see in the chat, if you can all, I invite you all to say one thing you have learned today that you did not know before about disability rights. If we can all put in the chat one thing, anything, could be anything, so as for us to understand what is at least one thing you're walking away with from this webinar. A ver.
And while everybody writes it, I'm going to respond to Barbara. It's more challenging because when we try to advocate for our children at college, we are unable, just if the child signs a form. And she's right, because they're adults. Remember how I said that the educational rights go into after 18 years old, the individual has their own educational rights. So it's correct, Barbara. Yes, it's more difficult in that case for a parent to advocate for their children when they're in college, unless that their children write a form allowing their parents to be involved. And again, I think in that case, this is what I would do, is like talking to your child, right? Talking about, there are all this information that I know. And when we think about education, think about the future. What are we doing? We're really thinking about what type of job you're going to have, what type of life you're looking at, right? So education prepares us for that. So when we think about that, without those supports, and if you can't get that education, it's going to be more limiting, more difficult, right? When you're in your adult life. So I think finding ways to have that communication. I know that youth, sometimes it's difficult, but I think it's important to continuously let them or see what the future looks like. It's not just the present going to college, it's the future. What after college? What's going to happen after college, right?
Yeah, these are great responses. People didn't know about the regional centers. That's new. They didn't realize how different an IEP is from a 504. There's so much great information about what people believe, learned. Section 504, the Rehabilitation Act. What I find to be so very important with your presentation, Dr. Arias, is to know what the law is, because that is what will support, and people can say, by law, I have this right. So let's work together to get the support for our students.
And and very important, sorry to interrupt, but very important to always do it in writing. I cannot
Okay.
stress enough, always, even if it's a simple, I'm requesting this because of this, and this is my name, and identifying, putting the date, because all of these laws go by date too, right? You have the right in 60 days to be assessed, in 30 days to be, if you're asking. So there's different, depending on what it is. So always in writing.
Okay, great. And I think one of the beautiful things that you said in your own lived experience is that you came together with other parents and created a support group. So, as leaders on this call, promotoras, community leaders, we can, even the smallest of thing, like inviting parents to come together on this topic to support each other. Porque I know that, having family members with children with disabilities, having that emotional support, and it's almost like teachers to each other. We could share our lessons, what worked here, what worked there, and every child is unique for sure, but the strategies and how other parents have done it gives us ideas of how we can potentially support our own children, our family members, or even community members that we know are also in the same path, supporting children with
Yes, that's
disabilities.
how our support group Familias Fuertes started because I have both hats as a parent and as a teacher. We also, looking into what a teacher ability to have the time to do that, right? To support someone with information, with resources. You can do it, but you cannot go as deep as a conversation with a whole hour with a group where you're just sharing, your experience, what happened. Teachers have to be compliant because in special education you have all this loss, right? So you need to create these meetings, have conversations with service providers for each of the goals of your students. They have to comply with all the progress reports. So as much as the teacher wants to do more, and I'm telling you because out of my own desperation that I wanted to like spend 2 hours with a parent talking, I wanted that, and it was very difficult. I always look for these other resources. I said, please call this number, go here. A lot of these organizations have parent support groups. I mean, one of the ones that I share is called Parents Helping Parents, right?
Mhm.
But it can be informal, like Angela said, like even just within your own school, you have 3 other parents that meet the parents, talk about, what is it that they're experiencing, and you'll be surprised of services that you did not know existed. What do you mean your son gets a person to support them to go into a regular class? Yes, peer educators are there, and every school at all levels have them because of that. In college,
Yes.
one of my students with Down syndrome who really needed and had extensive support needs was able to go to a pilot program in San Francisco State University to do a dance class. She loved dancing. Dancing was her passion and she was good at it. And she was able to the adult extended program, which, you wouldn't know if you don't ask and you don't go around. Through that, she was able to take classes, and she was given through Golden Gate Regional Center someone within the classroom to be given a stipend to support her with the notes. So
Mhm.
the other person took all the notes. The other student met with her and talk about what happened. Today we did this, and so in a way that the student understands, even if it's basic. But then the student was able to attend all of the classes. She took a
Mhm.
class at the university,
Yeah.
all of this extensive support. So it can happen, but you just have to continue to ask and look for those resources and support groups within the community. Or if it's not in your community, you can ask and call them and check. Maybe they have a referral and can tell you, well, we know this other organization or this other group around your area, right? So it's so very important.
Yeah. Gracias. Gracias. The little things that we can do, and a lot of impact when we ask questions and can connect the dots.
Yes.
Okay. I would like us to now, everybody thank Dr. Arias